how much money I make, or how much sports, how much money I make, how much I can bench press, that kind of stuff. You know, back in the day, how many girls I picked up one night, this stupid stuff like that. But I'm like, well, how do you feel? Like, what are your feelings like? Do you ever have any moments of sadness? Like, have you ever had those? Like, it just seems like you're superhuman. But what about the vulnerable side? And anybody who says that they don't have a vulnerability is actually lying. And I find that that's really important for us to share our vulnerable side as men. Particularly with my siblings, it was a bit of a toxic environment. But then when I lived with my in-laws and my wife's family, it was calm, peaceful. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, is this what life is? Like, it's actually complete. It's total night and day. And then over time, I ended up looking like the bad guy. That you don't want to be around us anymore, Bobby. You don't want to be around your family anymore. You don't want to be around, your immediate family. Yeah, maybe I was the bad guy, but I did that because I needed to see peace in my life. And then I got to a point, and sorry but not sorry, I got more comfortable around my in-laws and my own family.
Welcome to Design for More, the podcast where we unlock the secrets to healing, empowerment, and transformation. I'm your host, Angie, and today we have a special guest who's going to take us on a journey of growth, insight, and inspiration. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that follow button on Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow along on our socials. You won't want to miss the transformative conversations that we have lined up. So let's get started. Today we have an amazing guest and a good friend of mine, Bobby Dhillon. Welcome to Design for More. We're so excited to have you here.
Hey, Angie, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited as well. Thanks for having me.
So, Bobby, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell our audience, who you are and how did you get here?
Yeah, I'll try to tell you a truncated version. I'll truncate as much as possible. So my name is Bobby Dhillon. I'm a man who wears multiple hats. In regards to what I do, by trade, I'm a digital marketer. I work in the SaaS space. I'm also, I guess you can call me an entrepreneur. I do a lot of side hustles as well. In addition to that, as I get older in life, I try to be inventive and discover new ways, professionally. And of course, eliminate my old behaviors that I had in life. In addition to that, as I got older in life, I was also, had to, learn the hard way when it comes to mental health, and also, finding its purpose as well. Around, I would say, not even 10 years ago, I didn't really know what mental health was until I had to learn the hard way. So ever since then, some of the journey that I've been taking with mental health, I've been a little more candid and outspoken on so many different levels. A big thing that I like to do is talk about mental health from a male's perspective. As a man who's in my 40s, and from a South Asian background itself, one of the key takeaways, or one of the things that I want people to take away from me, is not only a peace of mind, but also to advocate for youth. I think that the youth could, definitely learn the lesson of mental health and not go through some of the anguishes that come through life, and to be prepared for certain things.
Amazing. I love that. Tell me about the moment that kind of, maybe it was like your aha moment or that turning point where you're like, okay, I feel like I'm burning out. Something has to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are a few moments in my life that kind of had to, well, I just kind of want to be very open and transparent of what I talk about. So if it gets to the wrong person's ears, I have to be non-apologetic about that. And so when I say the wrong person's ears, I'm talking about people who might have been or may have been close to me. But I'll just go, be point blank and say it, is that a lot of this came down to some of the societal norms, within our families, being from a South Asian family itself, and also dealing with some of the controversies that take place. Like, we all watch Bollywood movies and we all see these, make-believe versions of what families are or what they're supposed to be, the whole hum saath saath hai, but that's really not true. As I got older in life, I actually came to realize that a lot of people were in the same shoes as me, Being the youngest of three kids, I was kind of like grew up, being bullied a lot in school. I was also, I guess I wouldn't say I was bullied by my siblings, but I was kind of like a big piece of supply for my siblings. There were moments of bullying, so it all led up to certain things. And then not having the backbone to stand up for myself, which is very important. And also just accepting things from how they are, and that's not okay. So whenever certain things happen um, in a given period of time, having that level of acceptance by saying, "Oh, that's how it is. Oh, that's how life is. So I'm going to accept that." No, like, I think it's really important for you to step away from certain things and create strong boundaries, regardless of who they are, regardless of how close they are or unclose they are as a family member itself. And I'm sure many people can appreciate this. Some people may not, but at the same time, many of us go through this, and I'm here to, speak more about that. And also to um, admit that it's okay to not be too masculine of being a man at times, because like masculinity is something that we've all been. I wouldn't say we've all been, but like that we've been trained to like portray that we have to be masculine, we have to be the tough guy, we have to be the leader, we have to be the alpha. What the hell is an alpha? and so that's more of a rhetorical question, but maybe not. But yeah, what the hell is an alpha? And what is the best version? What is the best version of yourself? And that also came along the way of getting rid of old habits. So yeah, went off on a bit of a tangent.
No, all good. I loved hearing all of that because it's important for our audience to hear, like you said, from a male's perspective. Like I do a lot of interviews, I'll do a lot of work with South Asian women. And so, and obviously being South Asian myself, I can connect with them in terms of the same thing, what you're kind of implying, which is like the societal norms, the limiting beliefs that we kind of grow up with, right? That really shape the way we choose our partners, the way we live our lives, right? Everything we do is actually shaped from our childhood. So I love that you're really exposing and being vulnerable and sharing that it wasn't an easy upbringing for you, but you still had courage and took that step to be like, I want a different life for myself. That's amazing.
Yeah. And vulnerability is also really important too, that it's okay to be vulnerable. Um, like some of the discussions that I was once a part of, especially when it came to mingling with other men, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, that's cool, that's nice. And then when you have these very masculine discussions, but then don't you ever talk about your feelings? Like, is it okay for men to talk about their feelings to each other? Is it okay for like, is it okay? Is that okay? And that's one of the things that these were discussions that I was very limited from, because we were more talking about sports. We're talking about, um, you know, how much money I make, or how much sports, how much money I make, how much I can bench press, that kind of stuff, you know, back in the day, how many girls I picked up one night, this stupid stuff like that. But I'm like, well, how do you feel? Like, what are your feelings like? Do you ever have any moments of sadness? Like, have you ever had those? Like, it just seems like you're superhuman. But what about the vulnerable side? And anybody who says that they don't have a vulnerability is actually lying. And I find that that's really important for us to share our vulnerable side as men.
I agree 100%. What would you say to those South Asian boys or teenagers who are struggling, or even young adults who are just really trying to keep it together, I guess for everyone else, pleasing everyone else, but they're really struggling silently? Like, what would you say to them? What is something that would help?
Yeah. Well, for the youth specifically, is that I would say that reality is not on your phone. Reality is in front of you. And so when I say that, is that I would say that the youth or teenage demographic, regardless if they're South Asian or not, I actually go on social media. So many times I go on social media for entertainment. Like, I will look up the stupidest things, entertainment, jokes and whatnot. But when you look at, the influencer type of the false narrative of, making money, the false narrative of like how you're supposed to be, or how you'll have influencers will tell you that, you're supposed to be like this or you're not a man. And when I got introduced to this because I do follow, podcasts that are dedicated to, vulnerability as men. And yeah, so when I go through this content, and then when they debunk some of the things that some of the whole alpha mentality or the red pill, the red pill society, or whatever it is you want to call it, about like how toxic that is. About like you would have guys that would go on social media, and they would have like women that are, part of the podcast, and then go around and be like, yeah, rate me from 1 to 10. And then women will be like, oh, you're a 7, you're an 8. And then if there's one woman who would say, I think you're a 5, you're not my type. And then he would just go off and be like, yeah, get out of my studio. I'm like, number one, that's stage. And number two is that they're trying to teach you that it's okay for you to demean women or other people because their perception of you means so much. Like and that's only one part of it. Looking at the physical aspects of things, and that means so much to you. Is that like if you don't wear the designer brands, you're nothing, or if you don't like carry yourself in a certain way, you're nothing. Like I just feel that that's based on somebody else's perception that you need to be in a specific way, but it does not portray you being genuine and being yourself, and those kind of things. So yeah, but anyways, yeah. That's a big message to the youth, is that do not believe the hype, and that's not reality. And you are fine just the way you are. There's always room for improvement. And if you're a youth, you are learning, and your life is a beautiful thing, as there's so much in front of you. But whatever you're looking at in the moment itself is not reality. So take off the rose-colored glasses. Do not be a walking red flag, and be yourself. Like it's okay. Like, being yourself is an amazing thing. Like when I decided to be myself, and I was once kind of that kind of a person. I wouldn't say I was, but once upon a time I was a little bit like that, but that's not who I really was. And then being yourself goes a long way.
It's so true. And I can totally resonate with what you're saying, because I think learning to be yourself takes so long, right? Because you have to start that healing journey. You have to really start tapping into who am I, what fuels my passion, all that stuff, which takes a long time. And you have to go through different steps and processes to get there. And I can totally like resonate with what you're saying, because I was also, all those things you described, that was me, having the fancy car, the designer stuff. And it was like, but why? Because at the end of the day, I still felt empty. So it wasn't really fulfilling the true authentic self that I was. But I think that's a good message. Like you said, like for youth, really don't look at the hype, like, really start tapping into who are you? What makes you you, right? When you start asking those questions, that's what will put you on that right path. So Bobby, I know you mentioned boundaries, and I think that's huge. It's such an important thing for our healing journey, right? Creating boundaries, walking away from negative traits, people, patterns, whatever that is. So when you were in the process of creating boundaries, I'm assuming you had to let go of certain relationships, certain people, certain things in your life. What did that look like? And what did that mean for you in terms of really discovering who you are?
It wasn't a pretty thing, because I'm just trying to find the best way to explain this. And so a lot of this changed when I got married. And because just being very honest about who I am as a person is that I was always classified as the idiot of the family. I still am. And that's okay. I'm totally okay by that. Being the family idiot, and it is what it is. But then I was put in a position where I felt like I needed to prove myself. But then it doesn't matter what I do or what I say or what I achieve in life, it's not going to change anything. And also, like, even when I got, married, hearing the actual criticism that came from certain family members, when that fell into my wife's ears, she's kind of like, why are these guys talking to you like that? And so I'm like, that's just how it is. And so it got to a point where when I got married, I actually ended up living with my in-laws for a couple of years, and I'm very grateful for that. However, when you're a man, it doesn't look that good. And so supposedly, because the whole story behind that is that I'm originally from Hamilton, Ontario. And I ended up getting a job shortly after I got married. I was making very lousy money when I got married, like very lousy money. But then when I got an opportunity that was a good opportunity, it was like, hey, listen, this opportunity is actually really close to my in-laws on the, which is on the other side of the GTA. And it doesn't make any sense for me to travel from Stone, and it doesn't make any sense for me to like let go of an opportunity when I just got married and I have a big potential in front of me. And so I went ahead and I bit the bullet and I did that. I never went back. We're living on our own right now, but like I never went back home. And that all came down to, societal norms that you had to get married and you had to like, live with, your husband's family itself, and then just have this like, the 180 that you need to do in your life. But then I ended up doing the 180. And it was a totally different environment because growing up, my household was always full of arguments, particularly with my siblings. It was a bit of a toxic environment. But then when I lived with my in-laws and my wife's family, it was calm, peaceful. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, is this what life is? Like, it's actually complete. It's like, it's total night and day. And then over time, I ended up looking like the bad guy that you don't want to be around us anymore, Bobby. You don't want to be around your family anymore. You don't want to be around, your immediate family. Yeah, maybe I was the bad guy, but I did that because I needed to seek peace in my life. And then I got to a point, and sorry, but not sorry, I got more comfortable around my in-laws than my own family. So, like, and just having the courage to say that, or just admitting that, it just takes a lot. But that was the truth. There were times where I'd go back home and visit, and there would just be such toxic environments. And then the moment that we would leave and go on the highway to go home, that's when we would exhale. A situation happened back in 2018 and I just had my first kid at the time, that I was ostracized really, really. I was ostracized like big time, and it happened on my birthday, on my 36th birthday. And I was just getting floods of messages from narcissistic family members by basically a cat coming out of the bag about how I really feel about you doing this, and you found a woman who stole you away from us and that kind of stuff, which is not true. I made the decision; it wasn't her. And so I made the decision to do that. And then also, and knowing, and after, being a part of that, I thought to myself, this is not okay for me to tolerate anymore. So the more I actually expose myself to these environments, the more of a target I'm going to become. What if I just remove myself? And then what if I just limited myself? Or what if I just kind of like, make very little appearances and only be there when I need to be there? Because I don't feel good being in those environments. I'm there in many cases due to obligation, but it's not getting me anywhere. Like, I'm trying to fulfill things in life, but then the actual toxic environments is holding me back. And then meanwhile, I'm getting like, people in my ear telling me different things on like how I should be as a man, how I should be as, as a person, as an adult, or how I should be as, a member of this family. But then, but I guess it was just me not being the idiot anymore, because they accepted me as the idiot. But then when the idiot decided to change, they weren't willing to accept me to change. And then, and that was the bad reality that came out of it, that I was no longer worthy of particular family members. Those who were close to me decided to just not, associate as much. My communication channel started to, limit, and I allowed it to happen, and I was totally okay with that. But over time, it got to a point where I was able to actually look at my self-worth, and then apply that in other areas. Apply that in environments where I'm like, okay, if I have people around me that are behaving a certain way, it was not a it was not difficult for me to, cut off any type of, connections. If I feel that you're being a jerk or an a-hole, I have no problem cutting you off because I've already been through extreme bad environments. This is just another day. This is just like another, um, nib of the butt. Like I just have to like, yeah, it is what it is, right? And this came, and that was a whole chain reaction when it came to learnings and self-reflection and understanding, worth and value. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
Thank you
kind of
for
gave you a
sharing
bit of a
that.
long answer.
Yeah, no, that's that it's a really great perspective because to be honest, you hear stories about once in a while where it's like, yeah, South Asian male living with his in-laws, and as you know, that's not common for our culture, right? So for you
Yeah,
to do that, but really like what I loved hearing is how you bonded with this new family that was calm, right? That's the important part.
yeah,
It's like how important that calmness and that peace is to our nervous system and to healing and how
yeah,
you're able to disengage. And, that's the type of work that I do a lot with my clients is like, regardless of who that person is or how long they've been in your life, if they don't make you feel good, you got to be able to create a boundary and walk away or disengage or, protect yourself. So I just
yeah,
really, I applaud you and thank you for sharing that because you went through a lot and that's obviously not easy to share. Like these are your family members, right? So be proud of yourself.
yeah. But to be very honest with you, is that I'm nobody special. Like when it comes to this, because I'm not the only person who's going through this. And that's the thing. And there's many. I would say that there's probably a lot of individuals out there that are just like me. And so it just goes without saying that I'm nobody special. It is it is what it is, right? And that's another thing is that like boundaries is actually really difficult to do when you are in a South Asian environment, like because you end up looking like the bad guy. I feel that like being South Asian, I'm very proud of being South Asian. Extremely proud of being Canadian, but when you're South Asian, is that I kind of have this thing, and people might disagree with me, is that I find that South Asian culture is that we come from an environment that's very highly critical. Is that we're very critical of certain things. We're the first people to criticize. We're the first people to set normacy on how people should be. Like you are a man, you need to be like this, or you are a woman, you need to be like this. You are 25 years old, you need to be married by now. You are 30 years old, you need to have kids by now. You're 35, you need to, I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about, right? So just those certain
Right.
things that it seems like South Asian culture that there's a blueprint how there's a unwritten blueprint on how somebody should be, and it's so common
It's so
about
common.
yeah,
And not just for men, but obviously for women too. Like it's the same thing, right? Like you said, that blueprint,
yeah,
but it's like some subliminal, subconscious type of blueprint that we're like raised with. And then to flip
yeah,
the script, like, that was you living with your in-laws. I went through the same thing where I came from a very calm family, married my partner at that time, and went into this very chaotic and dysfunctional household. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And, being in
hmm,
my mid 20s, I wasn't able to handle it. And if, if we have these, I want to say, like, if we're able to really look at our inner child, if we're able to look at our programming, if we're able to look at our limiting beliefs and all these things that we're learning now, but imagine you
yeah,
taught those in your teen years or in your early 20s, you would be making better decisions or making decisions that actually fit for you, right? Versus what do my
yeah,
parents want me to do? What does my culture want? What do my in laws want me to do? And like you said, like you got judged for it, and that's not fair.
yeah. The judgment was yeah, and that was another thing. But back to what you're saying about being young and being a teenager, I also feel that like it comes down to the mental maturity. A lot of things are easier said than done, especially when you're young. And I feel that like if you're a teenager and you're given this lesson, in many cases you won't realize it until you get older in life. And you're like, okay, that's what you were talking about. And I feel like that's like that aha moment as we get older in life is that then it all makes sense. But then yeah, maybe it wouldn't make as sense back then, but now it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. True. So, what do you do for your healing now? Like, what is your go to for self care?
I exercise. I'm very regular when it comes to going to the gym. I'm not saying this in a sense where I'm trying to be Mr. Olympia, but I'm doing this in a sense where I feel that like mind, body, is like a really important thing. I've also taken up new hobbies in life. Like I have a lot of green, even though like I need to like do some landscaping, but I have a lot of greenery around me. I do like gardening. Maybe it's something as you get older and you get into your 40s, or maybe it's just me, from a Czech family or whatever it is. But but gardening is something that I have like a fond love for. Even if I don't really harvest on time, the whole preparation and process. Um, and I make a lot of time for my kids. I find that like there are times where I would go if I'm traveling for work, or even if I was to travel for a couple of days. Like there are times where me and a couple of friends we went to Vegas for a few days. We've had a lot of fun, but then I would be in a hotel room in Vegas, and I would call my wife. My wife would be like, "Why are you calling me?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just talking." And she's like, "You're in Vegas, go outside and have fun." I'm like, "Okay." Just things like that. But then there are times where I feel a little guilty, like if I'm gone for a couple of days and I'm not with the family, then the level of guilt comes with. Then again, like I always want to make sure that we spend enough time together, because the the youth of what our kids have is something that it just it seems like when we were young, like being young was long from a youth's perspective. Like when we're 5 until we're 15, it just seems like it's such a long process being 5 to 15. But when you look at your kids turn from 5 to 15, that is not a long process. That's a very quick process from the eyes of a parent. And I think that that's one thing that I want to do, is just make as much time as possible, not to miss out on important moments, and to have the camera ready on those important moments. So,
Yeah, for sure. So you're really just kind of being more intentional about being present, right? And
yeah,
that's
being present.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like that. Like that's important. And that's something that it's really hard to learn when you come from an upbringing of chaos, is what I've learned, is like, it's really hard to slow down and really put a pause on being intentional.
And also not putting that level of chaos on them. Like
Mhm.
also having them to be in a very calm environment.
Yeah.
But then at the same time having them to understand that what is okay and what is not okay. Defend yourself. Do not take that. You have every reason to defend yourself. I put my kids in jujitsu, and in a way where it's like done in the sense where, how do you defend yourself? Not how do you punch and kick, but like how do you defend yourself? If somebody grabs you, what do you do? And how do you diffuse the situation? And how do um, but I also teach the lesson that the best the best way to fight is not, or the best way to use your abilities in fighting is to not use them at all. If there's a way for you to diffuse something, that's the best approach to take. That whatever skills we're teaching you in jiu-jitsu is a very last resort for you to use, because you need to have that in your back pocket ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So what do you think, like emotional connection or maturity or resilience, what does it mean to you now compared to the young Bobby?
It means a lot more, I would say, because it channels in different directions, right?
Mhm.
So I also feel that like it's very imperative to have for your physical health. Like your mental and physical health are very interconnected. And like if you are sick mentally, you'll be sick physically, and vice versa. If you're sick physically, you'll be sick mentally. Um, I find that people who are in toxic environments, years are put on their life. And also, people grow up too fast when they are exposed to this at a young age. So I'm not saying that I grew up fast. I just accepted it. And but then I think the ones that do grow up fast from this are the ones who are more self-aware and more conscious about, like, what is right and what is wrong, and are the people to to react a lot quicker, right? And to say, no, that's not good. But I guess from the young Bobby itself is that I just wish I knew a lot more in regards to how to channel my emotions. And I wish that I knew a lot more when it came to defending myself. Now it's a lot easier because when you get older in life, you stop giving a damn. But when you're younger in life, you give too many damns, And all and the damns that you give a damn about, it's just not worth it in hindsight. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. What type of community work are you doing now? I know you're like all over the place. You're doing a lot of different projects. What would you like to share with our audience about what's coming up for you?
Yeah, so if anybody who doesn't know what I do, I'm part of SelfNet Toronto. We're a South Asian professional association. Much of what we do is we connect the community in many different spaces. We also make it a safe space as well. And that's one thing that I enforce every time is that I have to make sure that it's a safe space and that a space of no judgment. I do feel that it's important for people to connect, make friends, set boundaries. But in regards to like what's next, I do find that as we get older in life, that it's not just fun, but it's also a way to to be to instill self-development. Mental health is something that I think I could be doing better when it comes to these discussions. So I admit to that. I tried to. I tried in the pandemic when it came to leveraging that in the supplement network, but that is something that I'm looking to change a lot more on having these spaces. Also aligning myself with different organizations, and as I continue to evolve, one thing that I look to do is to become more of an advocate for mental health for South Asian men, or men in general. I think that's really important. And I think that the more conversations we have as, South Asian men, I think the better it would be, in terms of like not being silent, not numbing yourself, and being healthy in regards to like, what you're going through in life. And in many cases, it's not about, and also having things done with a lack of competition. I think that like when you have a competitive mindset, I'm not saying it's not being competitive is wrong, because competition is the person that you need to the person that you need to compete with the most is yourself. So leveraging competition towards yourself and with other people, and I think that's another thing that we need to do as South Asian men is to work together, not compete with each other.
Yeah. 100%. And it's the same like brotherhood or sisterhood, whatever you want to call it, right? But it's important to support each other and really build a community where, like you said, safety's there. There's trust, you can actually express yourself and not silence your voice anymore, which I think has been happening for so many generations. So
yeah,
I totally agree with you. And I think that's a great message for the upcoming generation, is that you shouldn't be silenced, right? Be the true authentic self that you were meant to be. And hopefully things will line up without all of these limiting beliefs and barriers and things that come into play that really allow us to become this, really present these negative emotions. But you can overcome those things if you're able to really be who you are and express who you are. And you can only do that, again, like you said, like if you're in a vulnerable and safe place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I was just going to ask, it's okay.
Yes.
What's one piece of advice or any words of wisdom that you want to share with our audience that you think will be effective or beneficial for South Asian males?
Be yourself. Be yourself and put the phone down and just look at reality. Go for a walk. Go for a hike. Like, do something different. Get out of your comfort zone. Go travel, see something else. Don't do like the normalities of what, like, I'm not saying the normalities are there, whatever that normality is that we have as South Asian men live in our South Asian environment, but be different. Meet a new friend, find somebody else to hang out with, learn from somebody new. And I guess it all comes down to doing something new. Over time, as we get older in life, we need to recreate ourselves. So whenever you decide to recreate yourself, ensure that whatever recreation that you're looking to make is for the better.
Love that. Thank you. Bobby, where can our audience find you? Do you want to share any socials or links?
Well, you can find me on you can find me on Instagram. My page is called Bearded Empathy. I used to call myself Bobby Empath, but I actually decided to eliminate that title from myself because I realized that I'm not an empath. but I have empathy. And this came from other pieces of learnings that tolerant, having tolerance is great, but also creating boundaries is also important as well. Boundaries is just as important as tolerance. So I'm a tolerant person, but I'm also a person with boundaries. But for me to say that I'm an empath, that means that I don't have boundaries, which is why I decided to get rid of that. But bearded empathy, and of course I got a beard. It doesn't look too good today, so sorry for that. But yeah, that's my identity.
Okay, awesome. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Design for More. Please follow, like, subscribe, and support us. Remember, you weren't made to settle. You were made to rise. If you're ready to rewrite your story and step into the life you deserve, check out the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Bobby. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Angie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.